I just want to say welcome again. Some of you joined today. We were there yesterday, and I think it was nice to see all the winners. And as I said, I just wanted to say hello. We are in good hands today, and we have a first wonderful panel, and make it as enjoyable as possible, and let's meet each other as much as possible. I don't know whether all of you know each other, but we will work it out that you get to know each other. And if you want to find somebody that you don't know or that you've seen on the list, come talk to me, and then I'll bring you, because I know some of the artists don't know everybody. So we're here to help you, and it's the whole 3 days is to get to know each other and to not only sell your projects to each other, but also inspire you. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful sessions.
Thank you. No, this one is yours. Good morning, everyone. Yes, I'm one of those hosts that waits until everybody says good morning back. It's so nice to see you. Who was with us yesterday in Theater Rotterdam? Okay, no. Who wasn't with us yesterday in Theater Rotterdam? So that's only two. So I had this whole introduction prepared about what MTNow is, but since there are only two people that weren't with us yesterday, I will not repeat that. Instead, I would like to know who my audience is. So who wants to let us know who they are? Nobody, so I'm going to... Yeah, well, you're laughing. Just a quick word, your name and where you're from.
My name is Jimmy Pierre de Graaf, and I'm from Rotterdam. So welcome to my hometown. And I'm working for Nicole Boitler projects. And I'm really happy to be here.
Cool, thank you. So who's next?
I'm Jacob Cooper, and I've worked on the project with Karmina, so I might be answering a question or two, a lifeline if she needs it.
Thank you. You see, when you sit in the front row, that's what happens. But I'm coming to you guys later, because you're on the side.
Yeah, I'm Chris, working for Music Theatre now, and it's wonderful to be here.
Hi, I'm Kiranjit Kaurvedi, and I'm Artistic Director, and I'm from the UK, running South Asian Arts UK.
Welcome.
Hi everyone, I'm Dominic. I'm from Opera North in Leeds, where South Asian Arts UK is as well.
Thank you. Now I'm coming to you guys. So who is volunteering? Well, you're laughing. You were the first to laugh, so.
Hi, I'm Marie Delprat from Switzerland, Basel, a musician, composer.
Yeah. We really have the whole world here. So who has been shaking everyone's hand? Saying hello, you know, going, hi, I'm... No one? So no COVID here? Okay. Cool.
Hello everyone, I'm Stanislas Pili, based in Bern. I'm principally composer and performer, and very happy to be there. See you later.
Thank you. Can I have a warm applause for everyone who had the courage to speak? So I guess now it's time for me to introduce myself. I'm Hasna El-Maroudi. I will be the host the next few days. I'm a journalist. I'm Rotterdam-based. I'm a columnist. I make programs. And, well, pretty much it, I think. Yeah, born and raised here in Rotterdam. I'm also not from the music theater field. I know nothing about music theater, so that's also super exciting, because the past few months I have been watching so many different shows and just trying to absorb it all, but also learn more about what the field is about. So I'm really looking forward to having a discussion and a talk with you guys. So, before we start, there's also always these things that I need to tell you. First of all, the toilets are over there. It would be good if you put your phones on silent. And a small rule for dialogue. When we are in a dialogue, we listen to each other. We let people speak and talk. If you want to reply or respond, or if you have a question, please just raise your hand and I'll make sure that, that you can ask your question. What I find most important is that this is some sort of safe space, meaning that we respect each other. So you can be critical, you can have different arguments, but please be respectful. And if not, I'm the boss, so I will send you out. So what we're going to do today, we have 3 dialogues prepared for you. In the second dialogue, we have Rajiv Bhagwanbali, Kiranjit Kaur Virde, and Pamela Lopez. In the third dialogue, we have Brett Bailey, Samara Hirsch, and Marlène Leroux. But first, we're going to talk about how music theater is an interdisciplinary field and how artists can find their niche evolving from different backgrounds. And with us today are already on stage conductor and director author Karmina Silec, choreographic theater artist and artistic director Nicole Beutler, and Rainer Simon, head of special venues of Komische Oper Berlin. But above all, you were one of the jury members during the MTNow Awards. To start with you, the both of you, you won an award. Congratulations are in order. Can you please introduce yourself shortly, who you are, where you're from, and with what piece you won your award?
My name is Karmina Silec. I'm from Slovenia. The production which I was awarded this time is produced by my company named Karmina Slovenica, which actually already performed once in Rotterdam. Title of the performance is Trenos for Throat. I will tell you more about why this title. Anything else? That's fine.
That's good. Rainer is the only one sharing.
I'm Nicole Boitler. I studied fine arts and dance, and did extreme physical theater school, like a private school, for 2 years. So that I end up in music theater is a sign for its interdisciplinarity. Mm-hmm. Like I always say, I'm naturally interdisciplinary. I have a love for various fields, and they come together in this. And I was awarded for Metamorphosis, mm-hmm. 8 Metamorphosis.
Yes, and we'll talk a little bit later about what the Metamorphosis is, but also where the idea came from. Rainer, you were one of the jury members, and I was really curious when I read all the jury statements and saw all the pieces. How do you start even selecting with all the works that came in?
I mean, I think it was quite a good process, which MTNow implied for the award, that we were 5 jury members. And in the beginning, in the first step, we had to view only 30 pieces, because I think there were like 150 pieces or applications. So, and then we kind of, selected some of them together with board members. And then in the second round, we had to view like 20 or 30, I don't know exactly, 30. So it was good to not watch all the 150 applications, because you cannot do that properly. So if you really want to see the performances, the videos, and if you want to get a sense of it, you cannot do that with 150 properly. So that, I think that helped a lot. Mm-hmm. And then we had kind of criteria that it should be like new approach to music theater, which was a new artistic approach to music theater, which I think is one of the most important criteria. And then I think there were, but I've forgotten the other criteria you told us, Chris. But there were certain criteria how to select the pieces, and then then it's like watching, reading, comparing, and yeah.
And, can you tell me what that new approach was when it comes to, for instance, Trenos or Metamorphosis?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think what we liked at both, for example, maybe I start with Metamorphosis. I think what we really liked was like the strict and very precise choreography and musical choreography as well. And I personally like that the performers are like, in the musical world, we call it triple threats. They are excellent dancers, but also actors and singers. And it was really like very touching. And also the theme of kind of deconstructing patriarchy. You told us that yesterday, and it was like, I think the way it was deconstructed in different ways, sometimes just slightly changes, sometimes really like shock moments. And I think we like that very much. So that's why your production get awarded. And Karmina, I think also, it was also kind of the Trenos, that it was really very formal, precisely the whole ritualistic staging, and of course also the combining of kind of religious music, a cappella music, combining with electronic music, which kind of convinced us. And I think that was, for me, it was new. Both works are kind of new for me.
Yeah. You're gloating.
It's interesting to hear how people perceive your work.
Can you tell me a little bit about how you came about to make Trenos? Because it's not all of a sudden, it's a whole process.
Yeah, it was really quite a long process. Well, I really like music by American composer Jacob Cooper, who is over here. And we did some works earlier, and then we just started to talk, let's do something on large scale. And it was quite a long process when we work together, have several workshops and discuss which political topic should be in first plan. And then we somehow narrow this to this, let's say, its working title was Requiem for Animals, but then we go different directions. It was really quite a lot of study of philosophical text, anthropological, and all kinds of things to narrow this very sensitive question of industry of meat, from moment of killing animals when they are still animals, and then when they become from animals our food. So we don't want to be like this kind of, or new agey, whatever, vegetarian, and so we just really want to go to this idea of human, how we treat animals, how we treat humans, because it's same. And then we invited poet Dora Malek, yeah. And we develop everything simultaneously, music, texts, visual, movement, and then everything grows over the years with workshops. Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that you first, when you came together, you started thinking about what kind of political topics can we use. Do you always work that way, that you look at something that is political or society, relevant for society?
I mean, the starting point is sometimes somewhere else. It can be something that interests me that I don't know a lot about, or something that I'm like super fascinated with. Like, for example, now I'm working on project inspired by Balkan war virgins, which is like very interesting phenomenon. But from this, then you go into some other direction. But with this piece, Jacob was very much into the subject, and that was his driving idea. And we just try to be, still in the field of art, but still communicate something which is relevant for everyone. It's and very, very important.
Yeah. And how did it go for you? Because Metamorphosis is also quite political, in the sense that it's about patriarchy, and in current times, just open up a newspaper and there's a piece about either how to kill the patriarchy or people trying to uphold it. Why did you choose that theme? How did you come about that?
Yeah, for quite a few years I was busy with feminism and with the future as female. And with female empowerment. And amongst others, I listened to the podcast of Esther Perel. Where should we begin? Who knows her? She's so famous. And at some point, she, and I read somewhere else, also said, but if we are so busy with female empowerment, where are the men in that? And when do we give some space? It has to be in balance. So what is the new man? And she even said, I think 2020 or so should be the year of the men, which everything turned out to be different. It was the Corona year. But the idea was to really focus on what is masculinity or what is the man, and how, and also men have to transform to grow into this new being together. So it's a ritual for the end of patriarchy in times of climate crisis. So everything is melting. Our understanding of who we are is melting, that we exploit the planet. All these ideas are melting. So also the idea of what a man is and what a woman is melting.
Rainer, is that something that you, as a jury member, also look to, that it's relevant in, what did you say, the societal issues that we are constantly talking about, whether it is color or gender? Is that something that you guys specifically look to?
Yeah, I think we discussed a lot, especially about that production, because it was all male cast, so no women on stage, and that was kind of a discussion: is that, could we award a production like that in these days? And at the end, we said, yeah, of course, because that's the theme of the production, and it's quite relevant to talk about that. But it's not. I mean, it's not. It doesn't have to kind of tip the identity politics issues. They are very, very important, but that's not the one and only criteria. For example, I mean, the Trenos. I just forgot to talk about the theme you are dealing with, which is quite relevant and contemporary. But the thing which we really liked about the production is that it wasn't like a documentary political music theater production, but it's like a requiem. It's a traditional format for giving animals, especially dead animals, their dignity back. And that's kind of what we really liked about the production, that it takes a contemporary theme, a quite relevant theme, but it combines it with an old form of presenting music. So I think the topic is not the one and only criteria. It might be one of more criteria.
When you look at the music theater field, maybe this is a question you can all answer. Do you see a change in the topics that people, or that the field is using, when it comes to like now it's all political and societal, but has it been changing the past few years? Because I can imagine Corona, everybody was so stuck in their own home and their own lives that it kind of also incites this view of wanting to change the world.
I really don't know about the music theater scene. I just think that anybody who makes art has an urge to put on stage something that's at stake. Or let's say 80% of the people that want, or the people that want to innovate art, or that feel that they're an artist and not just an entertainer, they deal with issues that are at stake. Very general answer, but
I had the feeling in the selection, we have like 6 winners, and 3 of them worked with ensembles, with bigger ensembles. I mean, Karmina, you work a lot with choirs. Nicole, I think you have also your group of people. So there are 3 productions, and the Hungarian productions where like the ensemble is quite prominent. And I think that's something maybe that has to do with the pandemic, the longing for feeling or showing togetherness on stage. In what way it will be, like in deconstructing the patriarchy or in mourning together. But I think that was something we also discussed in the jury, that we had the feeling, there are quite a lot ensemble productions where not the individual is the most important part. So, but that's not an answer to your question.
No,
I
but
think
it does show a change within the field. Maybe it's not that big. Maybe it's temporary, but it does show some movement, I guess.
And not to forget, Metamorphosis was made before Corona, so I don't know when your piece print.
I'm not really sure if I get the question, if Corona changed the world, or generally if music theater is going into different direction.
No,
that was generally.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that it's so different. Then I mean, I'm following these music theater events from 2008 when it was first competition, and I remember then in that time there were again some performances more engaged into social questions or whatever, and some are more into general, let's say, beauty of some parameter, either music or visual. I don't think that it's really changing dramatically. Maybe can be the reason also because what I like to make jokes, a lot of grants are related to important questions. So maybe this also derivate more projects which are into some question.
I see people in the audience nodding and saying, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just going to come to you for a second to see if you have anything to add, because if you say grants can, make someone choose a different topic, how have you seen that in the field?
I think for me, what I've noticed is that there'll be a trend when you're researching, or you're an artist or an organisation that you're running as an artist, and you're looking at grants or ways. I don't really like the idea of grants in that sense. I think investors. So you're looking for somebody to invest in your work and what you want to produce. Then often when you're doing your research, you'll see a trend that's taking place. And sometimes just reading that, and it's like they were saying, sometimes it's just a spark of an idea. And sometimes the more you read that trend, the more there's a chance of that idea becoming a reality. And therefore you might end up thinking, yes, I do want to do a piece of work this way. For anyone who chases grants, obviously they'll be dictated by what the subject that particular grant's going for. But if somebody who's doing a piece of work and looking for that trend, then you'll get that as well. But there's a danger often, I find, that because the money is going a certain direction, the investors, whether they're trusts and foundations, whether they are grants from government, whether they are individuals, it's their thing. And if you're chasing it, you will change your art to fit to get the money to do the work. And we know freelancers, it's hard anyway. But if you are somebody who says, this is the idea, you have to spend more hours searching for the right investor who will put the money in for you to do your work.
Thank you. I don't know that sign. Okay.
However, maybe I just have this kind of uncanny feeling about artists chasing for money. Something feels wrong about this. How do you say, suggestion? I think that it's challenging enough to make art. So it's to put artists in, to get out of bed and to make art. It's not something that's super easy, and it's not that we go out and we chase for money and then we just do what the grant givers suggest to us. So there is something.
It would be easier, I think, to just do whatever the grant givers want you to do. But
I don't think we do that.
No, but I think anyone who makes art does it from their heart, right?
From a necessity, because it's not obvious. It's not easy to survive in this world, and it's not obvious to you don't serve someone else.
And I also think there's a problem if grants are so much specialized on certain themes, because it limits, of course, the ideas and the possibilities. And as Nicole said, artists themselves are interested in being at stake. So there shouldn't be like the grant programmers telling them how they should be at stake. It's themselves. I mean, Karmina and both works, they are good examples for being at stake without anybody telling them what to do. So.
danger.
Can you use your mic?
No, just it's a big danger if it's going to be like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel a whole different dialogue coming up soon about fronts. But for now, I would like to look at the audience and see if there are any questions. Please feel free. I do this thing that I get up and I just walk into the audience and then hope someone doesn't let me hang. So, who has a question? Just a second, I'll give you the mic.
Should I introduce myself?
Yeah, I'll hold the mic.
Thank you. I'm Caroline Wilkins. I'm composer, performer, researcher from the UK and Australia. My observation is that the actual structure, the way of working in music theatre has now become really lateral. It used to be so hierarchical with one person at the top, usually the composer. And this kind of pyramid structure. And it's so wonderful to see increasingly that it's becoming lateral, that there are collaborations. No one person is dictating how the others work. The other observation I have is that we're also dipping into the past with the example of the Slovenian piece, using the form of a requiem, as requiem used to be in the past, a kind of music theatre. I'm thinking of Mozart, of Brahms, that there is this theatrical aspect. And it's interesting using a requiem in the context of contemporary music theatre. So it's really a comment, actually. Yeah, thank you.
I was just about to ask the question. So is there anyone else who has a question? And please let me know if it's a question or just a remark.
I hope it's a question. I thought it is. Both works are, in the kind of way you said, a ritual for the end of the patriarchy, a ritual for... Yes? But usually, or the idea of a ritual also includes involvement of the audience, or in a cathartic way. Maybe you could tell a little bit how you thought, how the audience is influenced, how they are getting into the work. Are the persons on the stage are placeholders for the audience who are imagining to be part of it? Maybe you could tell a little about that aspect.
So the role of the audience in both your pieces.
It's a very nice question, I think, because it challenges me a little bit in trying to answer it well. Well, first of all, in our production, it's the idea was very clearly a shift of perspective, so paradigm shift. Looking at the world from a different angle maybe creates space for new perspectives, for new interpretations. So to have the audience seated on stage and to have them enter a space via the back door was actually a very big ingredient, and it also made that we cannot tour in some places because the fire police doesn't allow the audience to enter there. Just to say, it's a choice that also brings difficulties. And the audience sometimes doesn't know where they end up, because at first the piece pretends that it happens in a black space, in a flakke vloer, in a closed black space. So they don't know exactly where they are unless they know the theater setup very well. And that's a very important aspect of the work. It's the shift of perspective which makes them rather than just observers, also partake as witnesses of it, witnesses of the event. And in the end, when the Gaza opens and the space is revealed, it makes them aware of the shift of perspective. So yeah, that's actually the main ingredient. And the other one is that because I always let the performers of different disciplines enter into territories that they are amateur in. So the drummer is also moving and singing, and the dancers are singing, and I also I feel that I push the expectations of the people in a way that they think they know who is who, but they don't. And I enlarge the space for humanity and that we all have different skills and diversity, etc. So it's more indirect.
I think speaking of Requiem, there are several questions which are more to composition, to structure, and maybe Jacob would be.
Sure. Yeah, I'll just chime in for the Requiem thing and also the audience thing. Oh, thank you very much. So I think I can kind of tie those two questions together. I think for us, the idea of working with an old structure was significant for us in a way that sort of ties into the ritual idea, because we borrow a lot from things that have already existed, like spirituality. I think we saw the piece probably more as spiritual than political. It's not so much about the animals, but it's about the humans and how we reckon with what we're doing. Basically, it's like a prayer for these animals. So like thinking about, as you know, it's not so much like wagging your finger, as you said, and saying you shouldn't eat meat, you shouldn't kill these animals, but like, let's think about it. Let's have a moment, a space to reflect. The way that a requiem could be, Mozart's requiem, the idea of a requiem is you're thinking about the death of Christ and probably about the death of others as that happens. And so it gives you space to reflect on that. So I think we saw this piece as a way to give space for the audience to reflect. And the audience, in a way, is connected to the singers, the women singing, is like sort of like they're the congregation. So they're going through this moment of reckoning where they allow this hour and a half of time as they have this prayer for these animals, and the audience is supposed to feel like they're one with the congregation. And it didn't, like, we thought a lot about the sort of space that this should be in, and a black box theater where the audience felt like they were part of the congregation or the singers was really important for us. Like a proscenium stage where it's like, hey, we're watching these people do this thing was not what we wanted. You know, it had to be like as if they were part of the people singing. That was the idea. As if you were perhaps in a church, in a congregation, and the feeling like you were experiencing everything together as a group.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question with the involvement thing, because the question is what kind of involvement. So is it really like a participation, you know, you take action as audience, or is it a perceptive involvement, meaning watching, listening, seeing? And I think that's also a kind of involvement, which is quite important, especially nowadays, where you are always, you know, you put comments in the social media, you are active all the time. And I think theater is a good place to lean back and just to listen, to watch. And I think all the productions we selected, they are like classical productions without any participatory involvement. But I think there's also a reason for that somehow, that we kind of, like it's not the classical setup, it's more the classical mode of involvement by watching, listening, seeing. So, yeah.
Is it also easier to make a piece in which the audience just has to be quiet?
Is it easier is the question. Oh, it's just different. I think it's important.
The audience to involve and to interact and to really, I don't know, maybe even be on stage. It's a setting you cannot stage.
I've done it. To be honest, I'm always interested in breaking the fourth wall, so that I have always done it in a careful, gentle manner. To in some way or another in other productions involve the public. Now the guys also, as when they transformed into colorful beings, they enter the public in order to go into this nowhere land or the new land and pull the public along. And I have no problem involving the public, really. I can easily entice them to go on stage and do whatever. It's not so difficult, actually. It's more what you want to say and what you want to do. And I really like what you say, that the idea of listening or listening to someone else and reflecting a little bit before giving your own opinion, whoa, this becomes really a valuable good. And we can exercise that in theater. That's why I love theater still, that I have to surrender to somebody else's idea. And it's not constantly about me, but that I give myself over to somebody else and I concentrate on that. And if I don't like it, then I think about whatever feeds me. So it's a valuable time.
I mean, for trainers was also interesting because this is kind of a slow listening format. It's really slow music, and you digest it in a way like slow food is served, and it's very difficult. That's why it's quite challenging to have this kind of involvement, because we are now in this short format of MP3, 3 minutes or something. So when you have a really long, like, transition of 20 minutes, it's a challenge for audience to be with you and to really. Yeah, as well for performers. Yeah, it's quite an experience.
Just a short follow-up question. You say that you just give yourself. What does that do to you as a maker? Does it stress you out a bit, or are you? Does it feed you to be able to make a next piece?
Which one? That I give myself over to someone else, or that the public?
To the audience. That you just surrender yourself when you make a piece, and the audience is there and they watch it and they have all these opinions that are just their opinions. But I can imagine that also does something internally as a maker.
Maybe I don't understand your question right. So it's. I really appreciate the fact that we have the space of the theater that creates that time and space for people. But of course, I'm always I'm a director, so I sit outside. So I'm my first public, and I think, how would I feel if I saw this? When does something become too long? Or I also work relatively slow because it's about attention to detail, and. So yeah, in a way, I feel always very privileged that I can be in this position all the time and see my pieces 100 times, where the public only sees it once.
But does the response of the public change you in your way of work, or maybe does their response maybe even change the piece a bit?
Absolutely. We had our first tryout of the new piece that comes out in 2 days, and in a town in the Netherlands with people that I don't think have seen work like that before, or not much. It's more like a cabaret theater where we could montage. And of course it influences how I feel when I watch together with them that they are out for a day for an evening of entertainment. And then they are confronted with the fact that, it's dealing with a climate crisis. However, yeah, so I feel always when the public watches together with me, I feel different. Surely it gives me some insights and what I would do slightly different. Or how to understand what I'm looking at. It does change. The eyes of the others changes.
Yeah, I believe it can sharpen you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Last question. This was your second award here, at least at MTNow. I was wondering what it means in means of getting connected with other people in the field, seeing each other, maybe also people recognizing your work.
Yes, I think a little bit of everything you mentioned, but to a certain extent. I mean, yeah, we are around, we get to know each other, maybe somebody here, and maybe, let's check what she's doing, and then maybe some invitation come from some project. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
What do you hope the prize will do for your work?
Well, I'm extremely delighted with this prize because it's so. I don't want to show off, but we also got a mime prize for the piece, and we were nominated for a dance prize. Just to show, it's really great, no? That it's so in between the disciplines, and somehow this music theater, where I don't identify with any of them more than the other, I must admit. However, as I said in the beginning, the music theater with the idea of Gesamtkunstwerk is, I think, what I, in the end, identify most with. So in that sense, there is something that feels very right.
I just want to add that, music theater is really always in between of something. You don't have your own critics, or you have music, or you have theater. You don't have your own budget field. It's always in between of something. So any attention which you get, it's like getting award is very important for all of us, because it's the oldest form of the art, from the old Greece, but still a bit new. So it's always in between of, the worlds. Yeah. So it's important to be present also with some international things. Like this.
Then it must be extra nice to be recognized by all these different fields as well. So it kind of makes it all inclusive.
Yeah, it shows just how interdisciplinary it is. And you asked what was I hoping? Yeah, we really hope to tour the piece more. So if there's anybody here who is interested, no, because we really enjoy the group is so strong and we are very ready to do it.
So I'm going to look at the audience again. We still have a few minutes for some questions. If there are any. Can you introduce yourself over the mic?
Okay. Yeah, my name is Henrik Schaefer. I'm the music director of Folkeopera in Stockholm, and I live in Stockholm and in Den Haag. And I heard the word entertainment a couple of times, and I have the feeling at the moment that more and more people who sit in decisive positions don't actually diversify between art and entertainment. And I just want to ask you if you have the same feeling, and how you fight against that.
So the difference between entertainment and art, always a difficult one. Yeah. Rainer, maybe you can.
I mean, I'm from Komische Oper. I wouldn't make a difference. Actually, I wouldn't make a difference. I mean, there's good entertainment, there's good art, there's bad entertainment, there's bad art somehow. So it's about quality. And I would say a wonderful operetta could be amazing art. A wonderful musical could be amazing art. A wonderful pop cultural performance could be amazing art. So, I mean, in the country where I'm from, we more have to deal with the kind of artificial separation between art and pop culture. So I would say, from my own point of view, it's a little bit, it would, yeah. So, yeah. It's,
So when it comes to funding, for instance. Okay, so when...
Yeah, I can also respond to that.
Just a second. Did everybody hear his follow-up? Yeah? No? Okay. So his follow-up is not so much about the makers, but more about the people that give space to the makers. For instance, funders, that they only look at entertainment. Maybe don't even know the difference themselves. Yeah, between music theater and entertainment.
There's definitely something going on after Corona pandemic. We're still maybe in that the theaters in the Netherlands have a bigger problem in filling the seats. So therefore the choices go to safe areas. That's absolutely the case. So bigger names, more entertainment value is quickly programmed. Yeah, that's the case. And we were always part of the 20% experimental people, no matter how accessible the work is in the end and how. But yeah, as soon as you push boundaries in some level, you stay the experimental crowd, whereby I think, it's actually very accessible to the normal audience.
Is there a way to change that? I mean, I'm sympathetic to the theaters that are now struggling so to make the choices that they are. But in the future, is there a way to push the narrative of being 20% and maybe becoming 50%?
I think it's by definition not the massa isn't attracted by innovation of experimentation. So I think it's really politics that creates this problem. If politics changes such that the seats don't have to be filled to accept that, also big names in the beginning of their career or halfway through their career did not fill stadia. So embracing that, I think, would change a lot.
Maybe think about success in a different way. That success isn't necessarily all seats.
Absolutely. It can be based on content and in having new ideas. Yeah.
Just one more look into the audience if there's a last question. If not, then.
Hi. Hi. My name's Amanda. I'm from London. I'm a playwright and librettist, and I like to write stories centering Black narratives and climate justice. And I was wondering, as you tour shows, are you able to keep the climate crisis in mind when, with the nuts and bolts of actually performing the show and touring the show? Is that getting easier to bring up with different companies and to do?
We are talking about this subject matter since years now. Since how many years? 2, 3, very intensively. We've been eating vegan in all catering. We try to avoid plastic. We say that we try not to go to places where we all have to fly, and if we can, we go by car, etc. However, these feel always like small steps. And if we go somewhere internationally, to stay longer and to interact with the people, so to stop flying in and out for one show. So we're trying that. However, it feels still that it should come from politics as well. The bigger choices have to be made. I mean, the companies have all the load on their shoulders to behave nicely and not create too much waste, to reuse costume, etc. Yeah, but I think politics would help. Like the theaters should become solar power and powered, etc. So finances have to go into climate workers. Now the war in Ukraine is also a huge climate crisis. So it's crazy times.
Yeah, I mean, you have much to it. Well, then I want to thank you, the three of you, obviously, and also the audience for listening and for talking with us. We're going to have a short break of about half an hour, so you can all grab a cup of coffee, mingle, and I will be yelling at you, telling you to come back in after half an hour, and we will continue our talk. Thank you. Thank you so much.